This morning I want to ask the Minister for Justice, further to the topical issue which I raised on the 19th of October 2023, if he'll outline the current total number of allegations of child sexual abuse involving members of the Probation Service in his department, and if he has considered putting in place a non-adversarial redress scheme, if appropriate, and if he will make a statement on the matter.
Minister.
I want to thank Deputy McAuliffe for raising this question, and I just want to acknowledge his long-standing interest in this issue and his persistent raising of the matter, which is of significant importance. I just want to say to Deputy McAuliffe that I've confirmed with my officials that there have been 2 historic allegations of child sexual abuse made in relation to staff of the Probation Service. Both relate to alleged incidents in the 1970s by a former staff member who is now deceased. When the first allegation came to the attention of the Probation Service in the year 2000, An Garda Síochána and relevant services were notified and a criminal investigation was initiated. In recent years, the Probation Service became aware of a second allegation against the same former staff member, who by that time was deceased. The matter is currently the subject of a legal claim which is being managed by the State Claims Agency on behalf of my department. Since the most recent allegation referred to above, the Victims Unit of the Probation Service have put out several communications to encourage any relevant victims to contact them. I've been advised that no further victims have come forward, Deputy. The Probation Service have confirmed that they have no current allegations on hand. Obviously, like Deputy McAuliffe, I would encourage anyone who has been a victim of any kind of sexual assault to reach out for help and support, and also to report the matter to An Garda Síochána. There are a range of victim support services available, and these are listed on the Victims Charter website. I know that Deputy McAuliffe raised the issue about whether or not it considered the introduction of a redress scheme. As I said, there's a case currently being dealt with by the State Claims Agency. My department is aware of one other case and no other victims have come forward. So in all the circumstances, it would seem more appropriate to allow that case that is currently in the system to be concluded rather than starting a new process at this stage, Deputy.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy.
Good morning, and I appreciate you outlining in detail the previous work that has been done on this case. And as the Minister has said, there is now confirmation by the Department of 2 reports of allegations of child sexual abuse, and in the Minister's words, they relate to a deceased member of the Probation Services. Of course, this matter has also been the topic of much media coverage. The RTE Investigates programme carried out an investigation into the programme which they titled Scouting Dishonour, in which they referred to the then Chief Scout Joe Lawler, and of course allegations in regard to him and his service in the Probation Services. And I know that Joe Duffy on RTE has also discussed this case in much detail. Now, Minister, I appreciate that these cases are incredibly sensitive, but unfortunately for victims of abuse, there is a stigma coming forward. But when you are also the subject of the Probation Service, there's almost a double stigma in coming forward, because you also have to reveal that you're in the Probation Service.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Thanks, Deputy. I think you've put that very sensitively and appropriately. Like, I am aware of the allegations made against Scouting Ireland. I recall the RTE Investigates programme, and indeed I very much recall the very powerful work done by Joe Duffy in terms of, on his programme, interviewing people who had been subject of abuse whilst they were in the Scouts. Probation Service, obviously there was a slight overlap, certainly in the case of one individual concerned, an overlap between the Probation Service and Scouts. Of course, the vast majority of work done by Probation Service was done in respect of people who, I suppose, weren't children. But notwithstanding that, it is an issue that has to be closely watched. Like, on the basis of the information we have at present, however, Deputy, in circumstances where there's only 2 allegations, it would be difficult for me to recommend or propose some form of a redress scheme when the numbers are so limited. Now, I note what you say, that there may be other people out there who are hesitant about coming forward, but I did be interested to hear your proposals as to how we could
Thank you,
encourage
Minister.
them.
Deputy.
Well, look, Cormac, Minister, and perhaps a redress scheme will be overly complicated and result in people receiving justice delayed. But equally, we shouldn't be placing the burden on victims of having to sue the state. That's not necessarily the best way forward. And we've seen in other cases where people have their only option is to sue the state, then often justice is incredibly delayed. Minister, perhaps there's a mechanism here to try and mediate this, to try and come forward with a non-adversarial solution. The criminal justice process is not an option because the person is deceased. But there's also the questions about what did the state know about this gentleman's service. He worked for the probation services for decades, and it is incredibly important that whatever information or files are available to the Department of Justice are reviewed, and we do air what was known, because as we've seen with other cases of sexual abuse, it is really important that there is transparency about what happens.
Yeah, certainly, Deputy. I'll make inquiries in respect of the stage that, or the case that is still ongoing at present. If it is the case that there is clearly liability on the part of the state, well, I would like to see that case resolved in as conciliatory or in a mediated fashion. And I'll speak to the appropriate, maybe speak to the Attorney General just in respect of that case. Obviously, you're correct. It does put a lot of burdens on people to sue the state, but the Attorney General published a couple of years ago, I suppose, a protocol for how the state should deal with persons who are suing it. If it is the case that there's liability on the part of the state, I would like to see that liability acknowledged by the state. However, sometimes the difficulty in resolving a court case can be in respect of the quantum. I'm not saying that's the case in this particular case, Deputy, but if there is an issue in respect of quantum, that's when, as you suggested, that a mediator could be put in place to try to see if a mediated settlement could be facilitated.
Thank you, Minister.